Hey, and we're back for another go at the Lumix camera release, the S9. I don't know if I swear and then the algos for YouTube kind of go down to their Mariana Trench. So we've pinched a letter from the Greek alphabet for the title. I hope everyone knows what that means. It's mental. It's Panasonic mental. No LUT jokes tonight. No Panasonic jokes of any kind. This is serious. This camera is now officially launched. I love it when someone comes in and then they fucking leave after 6 seconds of this insanity. Whoa. It is a mental. Everybody is freaking out. I just tortured myself with a 1 hour sit-down viewing of Richard Wong, who reviewed kind of the living piss out of this. It wasn't actually as long of a review as he's known for, but then again, this isn't quite as big of a camera as we're used to. I'm just going to run through a few little things that I picked up from the Richard Wong interview with the camera. Great channel. Go out and check it out. It does have a mic jack, folks. I honestly didn't think that. I was hoping it would, but at some point I kind of gave up that hope. He didn't really show it, but it's on, the other side of the camera somewhere. Anyway, it's got a mic jack. Great. Great. It does have a mechanical shutter. That was leaked. Some speculated that it was a load of garbage. But, sorry, it's got no mechanical shutter. It does say it's got no mechanical shutter. That was leaked. I'm not an expert on that kind of thing, so I'm going to just leave that one alone. It does have a cold shoe, not a hot shoe. So nothing you slot into that little metal slot is going to actually do anything electronically with the camera. It's just a bracket for supporting whatever you want, I guess. Hey, you've got the mic jack. You could put a mic in there if you really want to. What do I want to go now? Okay, now we're going to get into some of the technical shit. By the way, that lens, that is indeed a fixed f8. And I'm just going to pick on this lens and the idea about what this camera is really meant to be used for. It's a fixed aperture f8 lens. Very slow. I mean, it's actually a medium speed lens, but compared to most lenses that people prefer these days, it's slow, and you can't change it. And I'm used to shooting fixed aperture because I shoot with a mirror lens, but this is kind of weird. It's also manual focus, so it's kind of dumbing things down a little bit. Like, I guess if you're trying to get into photography, not having to play with aperture is, I don't know, one less thing to think about. But is this camera meant for the new photographer, the young person, the inexperienced, aside from their phone? I don't know. I think it is, but it's kind of got some complicated shit in it too, which I'll get to. Strange lens. Be fun in a sense, but I wouldn't pay $200 for it. They say it's coming free with the camera, so you take it or leave it, but it's not going to cost you anything. The LUT mode allows you to increase the grain. What? Who buys a full frame camera, increases the fucking grain, and shoots on an f8? What is the point? Go pick up even, my God, where do I start with this? Even a 1-inch sensor camera will be fine. If that's what you want, grainy images, slow lens, go grab a 1-inch sensor camera. Or at least a micro four thirds. And then you really have compactness, you have budget, you have the grain if you want it, just probably crank up the ISO a little bit, and the slower lenses. This is it's something that people getting into photography won't understand. They won't understand why it's unnecessary to buy this camera if that's the setup they want to hit the streets with. I just thought that was kind of funny. Alright, now, in contrast to the simplistic sort of, I don't know, marketing, who's marketing it? It's been marketed by YouTube, right? It has an anamorphic mode. Again, picking this up from Richard Watt. Anamorphic? Really? Who the fuck is going to go and buy an anamorphic lens and put it on this compact beginner's camera? That's fucking weird. I agree with Richard Wong. It's probably just the fact that Panasonic have the firmware developed, and I thought, well, we might as well just put it in there. If we can put it in any camera we want, we might as well put it in there. Who knows, maybe someone will be on a production and they got one of these as a backup for some reason and they decided to, I don't know, it's fucking weird. But it's there. Who knows, maybe people would do something with it. It does have a high-res mode. That's not surprising, and including in handheld, so almost 100 megapixel. I think that's actually a really good feature. Takes advantage of the full-frame sensor. You should be able to get some amazing high-res pics as long as you've got a nice sharp lens. Even the f8 is going to give you pretty reasonable depth of field, I would have thought. So yeah, I pay that one. I pay that one, folks. It does shoot in 6K, so they're going for this whole open gate vertical resolution. I think that's bullshit spin, but whatever. It can film in 6K. It can do 4K 60 as expected and no more. I'm fine with that. Fine with that. It can also record in Full HD. Up to 120 or 180 with no autofocus. But 120 is fine. That's actually a pretty good combination, but I want to criticize the 4K 60 in a minute. In fact, I'll do it right now. 4K 60 crops 1.5x. Now 4K 60 for a lot of people will be the bread and butter mode, video mode that they were recording. Okay, you're cropping from a full frame base, so I don't know, it's not necessarily the end of the world, but I don't like it. I don't want to have to, especially when it's just one mode. If it was always cropping, it'd almost be easier. And I don't know whether it gives you a good warning framing as you change resolution. That's not good. Not good. In 2024, I don't know why, especially a full frame camera should have to crop just at 4K 60. I mean, the GH5 doesn't crop, so that's a win for the GH5, folks. And again, we'll get to the question, is this a video camera? Is it really a content camera? Because, anyway. Big fault number 2, time limits on recordings. Anywhere from 10 minutes to 6K to 20 minutes for 1080. But that's not long. I've done plenty of content creation with video. Not that you'd know from this channel, but I've done plenty of content creation and often had to go over 20 minutes, over 30 minutes. They're worried about it overheating. Wong thinks that maybe they can increase the time limit. I tend to agree. Maybe there'll be a firmware update. But still, any time limit is frustrating. I feel like wouldn't you just rather a bigger camera? Slightly. GH5 isn't huge. Wouldn't you rather have that? You get a smaller lens on there at least. I mean, and have no time limits. That would be my preferred option. I guess if you have a YouTube channel, you just like short, snappy, 2 minute videos, 5 minute videos. I don't use TikTok, but same kind of deal. I guess there's a zone for this camera where no one has to worry about the recording time. But for anyone who's sort of serious remotely or just likes longer format content, you're not going to be taking, like, you can't even really do an interview with it. Interviews often go more than 20 minutes. So don't get me wrong, you can just stop and restart, but it's so annoying, and you forget. You often don't realize it stopped. I had this problem with a little Olympus camera that I had. Huge fail with the time limits. It takes the GH5/6 battery, which is fantastic. So you get epic battery life out of this, compact camera, because that's a decent sized battery. And Wong City got 150 minutes, so well over 2 hours, about 2.5 hours. Now it's probably a brand new battery, but hey, it's amazing that they got such a big battery into that camera. So full marks for that. I don't know if the 4K cropping is something that can be fixed with a firmware upgrade. Wouldn't surprise me if it is possible, but I really don't know. If they could fix that, and if they could extend the time limits, at least on the 1080 and the 4K. If they want to, I can understand keeping it limited for the 6K. But yeah, I mean, not everyone is filming in hot weather all the time. I know that a lot of the world has some hot season. I'm just saying, there's plenty of places in Europe, winter in North America, even parts of Australia in winter. Like, it's really not, and it's very unlikely that camera will overheat. I think so. Yeah, that's firmware change would be great. It does do 10-bit, at least at 4K 30. So, nice to take advantage of what should be pretty good dynamic range and everything. Hopefully good low light. Wong didn't talk about the low light, but I guess we all assume it's just going to be as good as any other full frame. And yeah, 10-bit, nice color. I wasn't even 100% sure that I'd have that, but hey, that's great. Yeah, I think those are the main takeaways. We've got the red, the blue, the black. Apparently there's a silver one I didn't see, but the British racing green. I kind of like the blue. The green is just a bit stodgy. The red is like, it's kind of been done on a few cameras now. Maybe the blue has as well, but I definitely didn't instantly like the blue, but I think I'm starting to like it. I think I like the blue. I'm guessing the red and the green will be the most popular ones. But blue, yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's okay. Comparisons made to there's a Leica. I forget if it's an M2 or what. I don't know anything about Leica, but there's a little Leica camera that's very similar in design aesthetic, with a largely flat top, sort of flat front of the body, and it really does look similar to that Leica. But I've seen those Leicas, in photographs online. I've never actually really liked the aesthetic of them. And I guess, I don't really like that top-down look at this camera. I'm not sure I even like it from the front. I get that it's kind of compact. Apparently the L mount is it's a slightly bigger mount diameter than some other ones. So it's actually, and okay, it consumes the whole camera, but that doesn't mean the camera's, I mean, it is small, but it's not, the mount is big, so it's kind of compact, but not that compact. It's still full frame. When you put a proper lens on that thing, it's not a compact camera. I'm sorry. It kind of is with a pancake, but it's not slip it in your pocket compact. And price wise, I forget if it was confirmed, but I think it's 1500 US. That isn't cheap, folks. People acting like this is inexpensive, and I might have to call out some of those people, because 1500 US for a camera that's a little bit, stripped down, no EVF, no mechanical shutter, whether that really matters or not. Yeah, I think it's not particularly a good deal, especially with those recording limits that you have. So I wouldn't pay. I honestly wouldn't buy one. I wouldn't mind trying one out if I could get one in a couple of years for cheap, mostly for photography. I guess if you say this is a photography camera, full frame street photography, and say fuck the video, you've got some emergency recording capability if you need it, but this is a photography camera and you've got that handheld high res mode. Is there anything wrong with that statement? I don't, because the mechanical lack of a mechanical shutter apparently is more of a video problem, except maybe for flash photography, which no one does anymore. So yeah, I guess it works as about as compact as you can get for street full frame. Can't really. It's only a 24 megapixel sensor. Like, it's not. I almost expect better than that for it, because if you can do that with micro four thirds, which is 4 times as small. I feel like, I honestly thought it would have been a more high resolution sensor. Couldn't they have made it like 48, 50 megapixel? Because then, if it's not really a video camera, you don't need the low light. That's when the lower megapixels helps you. Maybe for photography to some extent, but I would have thought they could have done a bit better. But then again, maybe this is the difference between Panasonic and Leica. So yeah, it is what it is. Can you really have fun with a $1,500 US? That's like 2,300 Australian. That's not. That's a. You're not getting it. You get the shitty little lens, but you're not getting a microphone or a tripod or spare battery for that. That's a big investment. I think this is for people who have a pretty solid income, and maybe that's true for all new cameras. Your average Joe, and a lot of, by the way, a lot of like so-called professional photographers and videographers on YouTube, they don't make a lot of money. It's a really fucking difficult industry to be in. Some of the bigger channels probably make more from YouTube than they do from photography or filming weddings or whatever. So people are acting like the price is a pretty good deal. I don't think it is. I think it should have been less than 1,000 US. I think it should have been like maybe $999, $950. I'm guessing we'll see prices come down like we normally do. Will it ever come down to that level? I think if it drops to like 1250, and then maybe you can get, what would you need, like a 15% off deal? You might pick one up for $9.99 US. So yeah, it might get there in say 2 years from now. What I would want to see, if I was like, if I came into some money and I wanted to tick that full frame box, and I lived in a city, which I don't, but where I could do some good street photography. Let's say 2 years time, this comes down to $9.99 US. The firmware changes the time limits on the recording, because I would still like that. And especially if they could fix the cropping at 4K 60, I guess I might consider it. I'd want to get it at a price though where I could resell it if I didn't like it and not lose too much. So yeah, I'd get the blue one. I'd look at the silver. I haven't seen a picture of the silver yet, but the silver might be interesting. It's a bit of an old school homage, but certainly be happy enough. I think I would get the blue. I think I'd get the blue. And next question is what lens? Apparently there's an 18 to 40, which is actually kind of amazing. Um, that's super fucking wide. I would rather have that and ditch the f8, the fuck 8. The fuck 8 can fuck off as far as I'm concerned. I would get the 18 to 40, even if it cost a bit, because I actually really like the 28mm focal length. So this gives you that with a good amount of room on either side. I don't really like. I feel like if you need 50, you always need 70 or 80 instead. I've never. I don't know. It depends. It depends. But yeah, I'd pick one of those. I wonder how much that's going to cost, because that, to me, that's the more interesting fucking technology here. Is that lens? Would love to see something like that. I guess there probably already is on Micro Four Thirds. It'd have to be like a 9 to 20. I think there's this weird Olympus which is something like that, 8 to 18 I think it is, but it can't take filters because the lens front element bulges out. Anyway, a little bit of positive news with this lens, and I'm sure there'll be years of L mount lenses coming out, so that you're getting into an ecosystem at an interesting time, and you'll be able to salivate over all these lenses which you probably can't afford over the years. But if you're on a budget, go back to Micro Four Thirds. I'm sorry, especially for street photography. Where does full frame really matter with street photography? Because I don't think there's a depth of field problem with Micro Four Thirds. I really don't. Is it just vanity? I guess you got the high res mode on this. But so does the G86, but the G86 is huge. So I give it that. I think it's got some. I think it's got a little bit of cred as a photography camera. I'm not gonna lie. I got into videography. Well, I tried to get in. I bought the cameras that I own for videography, and I ended up getting into photography. So, because I just don't have the money to do the videography projects that I would like, which would need actors and shit. So, yeah, it'd be a fun one to review. Of all the cameras that I've watched, people's reviews of, because the S5 Mark II, people are so serious. They take this shit so seriously, and the J6, oh my god, and they're so painfully forensic and legalistic and everything this is a camera that if you were reviewing it, I wish I could test drive this camera. I would do a proper YouTube review, but it would be a fun review. It would be a fun camera to take out for a spin. I'd probably forget the video, maybe do a couple of quick funny clips or something, but I wouldn't focus on that. And the f8, I'd try. I don't mind what is it, 26? So decent focal length for what I like, but I'd want to be in an urban environment. This isn't someone in the other video said, will it be good for landscapes? I'm sure it'll be just fine, but isn't this kind of a boring camera for landscapes? I mean, landscapes are boring. I'm sorry. I've done my own fair share of landscape photography. It's almost always boring. There's an amazing photographer, Stephen Sperling, if you want to look him up. He did the best landscape photography in my state 100 years ago. But he always had a human element, not always, but a lot of the time, a human element in the photo. So it wasn't like true landscape. But if it's true landscape, it's kind of boring, right? This is you don't need this. You don't need a new camera for landscape photography. The trouble with the super high res is like if you have leaves and bushes and the wind or breeze moves them even the slightest amount, and since you're running a very narrow aperture, you probably are having a high shutter speed, a slower shutter speed is what I meant to say. You get that blur, and so the ultra high resolution doesn't help you unless it's truly dead still. So I think it raises the question: what is street photography? I've always wondered, what do these people do? It's like this hype thing on YouTube. My street photography camera, put it in my pocket and hit streets. Take some photos. What do they do with the photos a week later? Because landscape people are all like, printing it out and framing it and shit, right? What do you do with street photography? Some sweaty, filthy construction worker fucking clambering out of a manhole. I mean, I don't know. Some people are doing these little photo books, and I actually like them. I do like, from what I've seen of them, I do like them. I do like them. I bought some second-hand photo books from decades past, and it's a great way to get inspiration. Some of them focus on like really horrible images from like life and death situations, and I don't know that I don't like that. Is this, it serves a role, but you don't want to see that shit all the time. It's depressing. But yeah, what do people do with their street photography? They don't sell it. They don't print it out. Very few turn it into a book. I don't know. They share it on Instagram, make a YouTube video, but that's kind of it. I don't think, is street photography really a thing, or is it a myth? How do you consume street photography? Like, is it really just the hobby of going out and being on the street and experiencing the urban environment and feeling like you have a reason to be there when you kind of don't? Because you're not a reporter, you're not capturing the news unless something happens. You're recording a little bit. I would say if those images were preserved and someone could look back in 30 plus years, then it would be interesting. Especially because they're quite high quality images these days. Yes. It's rare you see a street photography image that is incredibly artistic. And that's the thing about photography, it's not an art. You're not an artist, I'm sorry. I want to make a video about this because it's a very important element of what should be our understanding. Photographers don't have to be good artists, but they have to be good art critics, because the art is already in front of them. They don't create it, but they have to know when it's good art. They have to know when what's in the frame has artistic merit of some kind. So if you're not a good art critic, you can't be a good photographer. It's that simple. Don't get me wrong, like, you have to choose the framing and the light, and maybe you can kind of pull certain levers, background blur, switch to black and white, whatever, but more or less the scene is as it is. The exception would be surrealist photography, where you're contriving a scene and you arrange the elements. That would be that would be an art form. But a photographer normally is an art critic and a technician, because you have to understand all of the technicals. your ISO or ASA or your apertures and focal lengths and compression and enlargement and all that shit. So I'm not saying it's not a hobby of merit or that it doesn't require skill. I'm just saying it's not really, you're not really an artist if you're a photographer. Anyway, enough of that. The Panasonic S9, I'm not going to buy it. I hereby declare. I don't think anyone should buy this camera. I want to thank Panasonic for sponsoring this video. It is so much. I'm so grateful for the $2,500 that I will use to buy something else. And I'm going to thoroughly enjoy watching the freak out. It's going to be one of those cameras. Everyone's saying it's great when it comes out. And even Wong had some criticisms. He's normally like really shy about criticizing things. That's how he, gets the cooperation of all these companies, right? And even he said, I don't really like the fact this thing has time limits on the recording. Because it was meant to be a vlogging camera. That's what they told us. It was a vlogging camera. Fuck, how many people said that? What the F? This... I'm sorry, it's not a vlogging camera. It's a street photography full frame. That's what it is. Case settled. Bloody. And emergency video. It's your emergency video if something goes wrong. If you just don't have another camera, or you need a third camera, you've already got two for a production. This is your emergency video. It could be an okay, like, what do they call that? Like location scout camera, where you might just want to record a 30-second clip, take some good photos, maybe some ultra high res photos. Be great for that. But yeah, I don't actually like the aesthetic. People are saying it's... might save what I was about to say for another video. I don't think it's that great aesthetically. It's just... It's boring. It's kind of like something out of Star Trek. With the stupid pastel uniforms, and it's just a bit unnatural and clinical. Apparently it feels a bit plasticky because, they've tried to keep it light. By the way, I think that's okay. I don't mind it being lightweight. It does have IBIS. Of course it's got fucking IBIS. Jesus Christ. No one's going to release a beginner full frame without IBIS. Yeah, I didn't even consider that it wouldn't have IBIS. Of course it's got IBIS. But I don't like the clinical lines of this thing. It's... Wong said it looks like a prototype. It's kind of like a concept camera. I don't like the fucking Leica that looks like this either. I hope they didn't just say, let's make it look like a Leica. And then maybe, like, people will be impressed. It is... Look, I guess you can say the way the top has that sheared off profile, like, so it can slip into, if you have a large pocket, it can slip into a pocket and not catch. I guess you can say that's a natural design evolution, and they weren't copying Leica, and they've got the dials on the same side that they always have them on. And I guess, again, if you want to slip into a pocket or a small bag, you want to have that flat profile without any grip, so they're not copying Leica with that either. So maybe they're not... I maybe cut them some slack, but I'm just saying, like, even that big blank space just to the left of the fucking lens mount as we look at the photo from the front, put something there. Just lighten it up a little bit, Panasonic. Put a fucking animal silhouette or a skyscraper, a little Art Deco skyscraper or something like that. A custom, that'd be a great spot for a custom insert. Put like a little, those things that hold slides, like a little clip, and you can put your own custom fucking whatever in there, just to snazz it up. It's meant to be fun, right? Let us pimp out our cameras. Or put something, I don't know. It's just, I see it as a waste of real estate. Doesn't have a tilt lens. I think people were saying it had a tilt lens before. Yeah, just a fold out lens. That's actually, I'm not sure I like that. You don't need that for, I guess it can help for some photography, but street photography, I don't think, I think just a tilt lens would have been better, wouldn't it, for street photography? If you're vlogging with it and you want it facing your face, okay. But those, I'm paranoid about snapping those fuckers off when they're flipped out. I've had cameras fall off tripods twice in my life with that fucking, with a flippy screen flipped out. And yeah, once it did break the fucking camera. Luckily, it was not an expensive one. So, this isn't really a tripod camera. I just don't, I don't know. I think that's going to cause problems for people. I think a little chunky, shock protected, tilt out lens that doesn't flip, it would fit the idea of it being like a cute compact camera a little bit better. Yeah, this is a camera that could never keep anybody happy because you're going to have your video people, your photography people, your different lens preferences. I think most people who are tech junkies do want the EVF, and I crapped on about that already, but this camera was never going to please anyone, and the price point, everyone has different incomes. Some of us are rich, some of us are poor. Nobody, we're not going to agree with each other. We're going to have different perspectives, different philosophies about how we should describe this thing. For me, it's an overpriced full frame street photography. The f8 lens is a fucking gimmick. Toss it away. Get yourself maybe that 18 to 40. Have some fun if you've got the budget. If I was a pretty serious, wealthy, even a video centered professional, I probably, and so price isn't an option, and I just wanted something a bit different to spice up my camera life. Yeah, maybe I'd go out and buy this and get into some street photography. But that's a bit of an indulgence. Are the youngins, are the 22-year-olds who are used to using a phone, are they gonna buy this? See, they're not gonna really give a shit about the cropping and maybe not the time limit. I know when I bought my Olympus, when I was just getting into digital cameras, I didn't even think that there would be a time limit. I didn't think to check. It turned out to be a very useful camera for me, so I'm glad I bought it. But when I discovered that, I'm like, damn. So I'm going to say your new younger user probably will not look at a lot of that stuff. I think they'll be happy with the colors. They might know enough to know that it's full frame, and that's, prestigious. The LUT thing, I don't think is as playful or quite as simple as it might have been portrayed as by people speaking about this camera over the last 2 weeks. Not that that's their fault, but it's there. It's got kind of smaller size. I don't I don't know how well it's going to go with them. Um, because you can take really good photos on the phone. Photos that are so good, it almost makes you angry when you own a dedicated, expensive camera. I've seen people taking Aurora photos with long shutter open times, multiple, 10 seconds, 30 seconds. And some of their photos, honest to God, are as good, in many cases better, than what I've taken with Micro Four Thirds. Okay, it's M4.3, but it's still a way bigger sensor than 1/2.3, which is what's in those phones. I've seen insanely low noise, low light footage from a Samsung Android 10 years ago. 10 years ago. So these phones are pretty hard to beat, and I think a lot of people will try this and just go back to their phones. Um, I was watching a street photographer on YouTube. I think he was being interviewed, and he uses his phone. That's all he uses. He doesn't even have a fucking camera. And he likes the fact that he can get his phone out and just lean against a wall. No one knows he's taking a photo. And he's basically incognito. He always photographs people. A bit cheeky. But he gets away with it. Isn't that a better option? Even if you wanted to have fun and splash out, wouldn't you just maybe buy a new phone that has really good photo and video modes? I mean, you'd have a lot of money left over. You buy a $500 phone, that's going to get you a really good phone. And you can spend the other $1,000 on plane tickets. Wouldn't that be more fun than buying this? People are going to buy it. YouTube's going to review it. The verdict is out until those experiences are documented. I'm not. It's funny having really dwelt upon the GH6, which is a camera that has consumed a lot of my thinking time about gear. And the GH6 is a weird one as well, but there's no denying its utility and its design excellence. It's just, it is a bit, or it used to be expensive. It's actually quite cheap now. And it is big and clunky for an M4.3. But I'd rather have an M4.3 without recording limits than a full frame with recording limits. With this camera, I just can't. Like with GH6, it's like, do I buy it or not when it gets cheap? Because it's at that point now. It's just a decision. Do I get rid of the GH5s that I have? Because that would, if I sold both my GH5s, that would pay for a GH6. So I'm very close, to getting a GH6. But with the S9, it's like, I'd never sell anything to finance this. What would you sell to finance this? Because whatever you're giving up is probably going to be a better camera in some way. Maybe if you've got a Sony and you're just a bit jaded with Sony and your Sony is not really any better than this, and you're like, I just want a fresh start, I'll sell the Sony, I'll pay for half of this, maybe. Yeah. Maybe Panasonic curious people who aren't really new to photography. They're just new to Panasonic. Maybe those will, you know, cross over into this ecosystem. I like to hold one in the hand. I might actually, there's a camera store I discovered. I don't normally go into the CBD of the nearest city to where I live, but I had to for some reason to do with my phone. And I discovered this camera store. They even had a fucking GH6 in there. If they have one of these, and they probably will if they had the GH6, I might go in there and just take a look at it. Just act like maybe I'm going to buy it. Fuck, that would be... It'd be a great video for this channel if I could wear a fucking hidden camera. Yeah, it would be... I'm just curious as to how it feels. But for the money, I couldn't justify it. And I don't know, I think a lot of people are just tightening the belt a little bit these days with the cost of living. This is what I predict. I don't think it'll sell that well initially. I think they'll be a bit disappointed. I think to encourage sales, the price will be slashed pretty quickly to like $12.99, and a little bit of a sale on top of that from the particular camera shop or online retailer. And yeah, they're going to want to move some units. There'll probably be around the same time a nice little firmware upgrade. It does have the phase detect, of course, so that's great. But it's got some serious limitations, this camera. I think it's a photography camera. If they can somehow market it to photographers, I don't know if the electronic shutter really has any other downsides. Like, I wonder what the fastest shutter speed is for this thing. That will be interesting to know. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd camera. A bit of an odd camera. Panasonic's given us the oddballs, man. Giving us the oddballs. It's getting a bit late. I've only watched the one video about this. I want to binge watch all of them. I go over to the Micro Four Nerds channel. There's a few other channels. Yeah, all the usual suspects. Like I said. And by the way, the price was a bit cheaper than everyone was saying. So kind of that's about the one thing I got right. Was wrong about the hot shoe. So yeah, I'll leave it there. Go binge watch some content. Try and handle one in real life if you're curious. If you're made of money, by all means pick one up for street photography. Have a blast. But if money's tight, I would say keep your powder dry. There's some more cameras coming out this year. Maybe try some phone photography. So, thank you for watching.